Okay, today we're going to talk about Tupac. There was a music video that was made right as he died, and it shows him in heaven. And so a lot of people think, because of this, that Tupac is alive. And there are other reasons why they believe that he's alive. And when you think about the murder of Tupac, you know, the fact that Suge wasn't really shot is another one. And then there's the album cover where Machiavelli turns into Am Alive. And so a lot of reasons why people think that Tupac is alive. And when you think about it, we have the autopsy and we have the death certificate, both of which make it look like Tupac survived his death because they're flawed documents. When Tupac died, just before that, Frank was called away. Reggie blew up Frank's telephone and blew up his pager and said, "You have to leave right now, come over to Suge's house." And there was a meeting and they were there sweating Frank. And why was the timing so important for Frank to leave the hospital? Well, I think they had a plan that they were going to do something to Tupac in the hospital. So Frank is called away. Snoop shows up. And if you've ever been anywhere where a celebrity shows up, everybody that's at the place, no matter what they've got on their mind, and think about it, they've had 7 days of babysitting Tupac in the hospital, and all of a sudden there's a big celebrity. Everybody gets pulled away. So Snoop shows up, and that's when Tupac died. And Snoop said he whispered into Tupac's ear, and then he said kind of mean, he felt he got it. Okay? Now, Frank and Michael Moore spoke to the nurse. The nurse was upstairs, and she saw Tupac's body. Frank and Michael Moore also talk about how the vehicle, the coroner's vehicle, was idling inside the bay at the hospital, and it was waiting for Tupac before he died. And so at the time, the nurse heard code blue, and then Tupac got wheeled out instantly. And then he was taken to the coroner's office, and then the autopsy was performed, and then he went to the crematorium where it was cremated. They had to get rid of the evidence, and so they did it quickly. And the way they did that was they told Afeni that Billy Garland wanted a DNA test and that he was going to take Tupac's estate. And there is evidence that the autopsy happened, even though now the autopsy photo is also flawed. And so that is a leaked autopsy photo, which I believe is part of the conspiracy. They had Photoshop back then, and they could alter the photos. They also had the ability to alter the photo of Tupac and Suge, the last photo that was taken. And there is a lot of controversy surrounding that. We'll get into that at another time. And so the outlaws supposedly smoke Tupac's ashes, but then Reggie tells them that there's been a mix-up and that it's the wrong ashes, and Rich McCauley is sent with the real ashes. So who gave the first wrong ashes? Who knows, but probably Reggie. Just like he gave Afeni the euthanasia chain. And the outlaws speak on this and they confirm it, that they were told that it was the wrong ashes, but they'd already smoked those ashes. So at the time Tupac died, the outlaws and Mopreme are sent out to guard the perimeter. So they've been sent away, as well as all the homeboys. So Tupac is left alone. And Reggie confirms that his guards were the ones that were on the door. And then Yo-Yo said Tupac shook the bed. Mopreme did. He wanted out of there. And Eric B. confirms that when Tupac is wheeled in the hospital, he said, "Just let me die," knowing they would kill him. But the doctor said he promised to look after him. And of course, Billy Garland, Yo-Yo, and Danny Boy all said that pus was leaking from his eyes, his head was swollen, and they were inducing him constantly. And so they were over-medicating him, and he didn't look the same due to the medication that he was being given, which, could easily have been poison. So this confirms that he was alive. He had consciousness. He was even fighting against the induced coma. And Afeni and Gloria Cox are in the next room and leave Snoop to have his moment with Tupac alone. So Gloria also said that she was told to go to Mexico to get some alternative medicine, and so she's gone. And we don't know how long she was gone or what have you. So as the investigation is going on, Reggie Wright Jr. wants Gaddafi and Edie to both identify Orlando Anderson, and they refuse. They rebel. And so they knew something was up. Gaddafi goes back home, and he's murdered execution style. So that kind of gives you an explanation of this. I've got one clip that I'd like to play for you. We found it. It's basically a cop who was there for the autopsy. And I've also heard something about the autopsy that we'll get into at another time. But I think this gives you a little bit of insight into Tupac in the hospital and whether or not Tupac is alive. Frank Alexander and Michael Moore talk about it on the Frank Alexander secret tapes, and they talk about the nurse that sees Tupac's body, and both Michael Moore and Frank had gotten close to this nurse that had seen the dead body. And you're going to hear this clip about another person who saw Tupac's dead body, and he's a little bit disrespectful, so I warn you. Anyway, more later.
Tupac's last moments were not very glorifying because he was there on the table, his chest is cut open, all his organs are over here, they put him in a big plastic bag, stuff him back into him, and sew him up and release him to the mortuary to dispose of his remains. So, no, I'm telling you, Tupac is dead. I saw his body. I was there when they cut him up and turned him into a canoe.
Thank you.